Quarterback talks are starting to heat up right now as we're approaching the NFL draft. What does this mean right now for the Chargers and their current pick at number 5? Could they potentially get the next biggest player out of the draft outside of quarterback? Find this out more here on Chargers Syndicate. What is going on, you guys? Jake Silva here on Chargers Syndicate, giving you everything LA Chargers news as we are approaching the NFL draft soon. If you guys, this is your first time here on the channel, I encourage you guys to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on future past videos of everything you need to be in the loop of LA Chargers news. So as of right now, lots and lots of rumor talks that apparently seem to be heating up come the course of the NFL draft. And part of those reasons is Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh kind of selling a little bit of his former Michigan quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, saying that he could definitely be the top quarterback taken out of the draft. Now, there has been rumors now that multiple teams that could potentially trade up into the draft. And what does this basically mean for the LA Chargers moving forward? So as many people know, that the top 6 picks that we're going to be going through is right now you got the Chicago Bears at number 1, which is obvious they're going to take Caleb Williams. You've also got the Washington Commanders. You've got the New England Patriots, Arizona Cardinals. Chargers sit comfortably at 5. And then there's the New York Giants at number 6. But there are other rumors that potentially other teams that are sitting up below past, the top 10 picks, which basically the Raiders sit there, the Broncos sit there, and so do the Minnesota Vikings. Now, multiple teams might end up potentially trading up to going and getting their next successor at quarterback, but how sure of this can we possibly think about it? Now, the Minnesota Vikings, as I've kind of covered this a little bit here and there, but they've got the hefty work with as far as the draft capital, because right now they have the number 11th and the 23rd first round pick. Now, again, they could definitely use up that draft capital to end up moving up. My guess is I'd say they might take their next successor and they might end up taking J.J. McCarthy. There's a possibility from there, whether it's him, whether it's Jaden Daniels, or whether it's other quarterbacks that they might have in mind. But quarterback talk has been heating up. And as far as for the Chargers are concerned, it's basically sitting at number 5. Many talks have basically have been saying, do the Chargers stay put? Or do the Chargers maybe potentially trade down slightly in order for them to keep the draft capital and maybe gain some along the way? Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz definitely have a game plan in place. Now, Jim Harbaugh did end up mentioning in a press conference, basically saying that at the number 5 pick in the draft, basically means it feels a lot like a number 1 overall pick to us outside of quarterback. And we may end up potentially drafting the next biggest successor in depending on the position of, where the draft is. And of course, the position play, whether it could be wide receiver, it could be tight end, it could be offensive line, whatever the case may be. But the Chargers are not in a panic mode. And I think we kind of recognize that from how the game plan has been stemmed. Now, as far as the Chargers moving forward, there are many, many options, and I've already covered at least 2 of them. I still have at least a few more that I will also be covering in the coming days towards the draft in April. But the names that I basically have mentioned, I'd mentioned about Brock Bowers, I'd mentioned about Malik Nabers, but other names that have been basically tossed around as far as true number 1s, because the Chargers are going to end up having to look at wide receiver. My hope is, I think the number 1 answer of the candidate would probably be Malik Nabers. Other names that have been thrown out in the middle of this discussion has been Ohio State's wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. has been thrown into this conversation, and also Washington's wide receiver Rome Odunze. Now, other honorable mentions that have also been kind of coming into the course of this whole conversation has been LSU's number 2 wide receiver Brian Thomas. But I think, me personally, if that had came to the fact, all of this kind of stemmed through the trading of Keenan Allen. Now, had this not been the reason, had this not been, the whole deal for the Chargers moving forward. If they did not end up trading away Keenan Allen, I would have said, hell yeah, I'd be jumping all over the Minnesota Vikings 11th and 23rd pick in order for them to move up and get the 5th overall pick for them to go and get their next successor at quarterback. But then that also means they may end up missing out on the sweepstakes on Brock Bowers. But they do have other options at tight end with Will Dissly, and they also have Hayden Hurst. So how big of a deal could it possibly be to not end up picking up the biggest draft prospect out of the draft as a position player? Now, if that were the case, my thought would be, and I probably would outlook it as if the Minnesota Vikings traded with the LA Chargers at number 5, they'd get the number 11th, and they would have gotten the 23rd. And my guess is they probably would have used those picks where the number 11, if he was still available, could have been Brock Bowers, the top rated tight end, depending on what the New York Jets are going to basically do at number 10. Because at this point, the Tennessee Titans, they're going to be looking at offensive line, and other teams that are also coursing through this whole matter could also potentially be taking other positions other than wide receiver and tight end. Now, that could have been a possibility. And then by the 23rd overall pick, Brian Thomas II probably could have been available up at this point. But the Chargers are very sitting comfortably. They're not freaking out. They're not panicking. They're basically kind of weighing out and searching other options that they possibly can. Many Charger fans have basically voiced their opinion in saying, don't trade away at the number 5 at this point because you got to get the best overall player at the position, which is probably going to end up being Malik Nabers, as I mentioned, because you need a true number 1 in this room now next to Josh Palmer and Quinn Johnston. Now, again, I think Malik Nabers developing that relationship with Justin Herbert. He's also somebody that comes from wide receiver U at LSU, which means these are guys that LSU has provided NFL caliber wide receiver products. So this is really this is nearly impossible to pass up. This is something that you don't want to end up kind of moving down towards, because now you're going to pass up the biggest receiver then, because Chicago also has the number 9 overall pick, which they could definitely give Caleb Williams another weapon if that's the case. So there's many outlooks towards this conversation, but I think the Chargers are playing steadily. Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh, they have a plan. They have a little bit of something that they could cook up, which could potentially raise a little bit more of the draft stock. So I think the Chargers are comfortably up at number 5, me personally. Now, had this been the case if Keenan Allen had not been traded, I would have said, go and reach out to the Minnesota Vikings, trade with them, get the 11th, 23rd, and then end up getting more of the bang for your buck at that point to end up giving Justin Herbert brand new toys to play with. So that's just my personal opinion up on that. But I think they're comfortable at number 5, and I think they're going to end up drafting the next successor, which that should be. Whether it could be Malik Nabers, could be Marvin Harrison Jr., could be Rome Odunze, but I'll have more outlooks on that on the next videos up and coming ahead before draft night. Appreciate you guys here joining up on the video. I encourage you guys to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button on latest Chargers news to keep you up into the loop. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Jake Silva signing off, and we'll see you guys in the next video of Charger Syndicate. See you guys.